Transformers is the most famous toy line to feature toys that change into different toys. It really is a brilliant concept. Having a car that turns into a robot action figure is just smart and offers so much more value than most toys. And in modern times, they can also serve as complex puzzle toys. So there is a ton of inherent value in the concept. And thankfully Hasbro, the owner of Transformers, doesn't own the concept of transforming toys in general. So there have been many toy lines that are based around transforming toys or feature them in some way. What's good, internet? Jake here, dumb as ever, and in this video we're diving back into the world of Transformers that are not Transformers. This is volume 7, but don't worry, you can watch the videos in any order. And I've created a playlist with all of the episodes if you want to check out more. This is a series that kicked off my channel, so I've got a lot of love for it, and I love diving into these super random toy lines. But sadly, my old archenemy, Algae Rhythm, is up to his old tricks again, and he's affecting many YouTubers, including myself, with weird new rules and algorithmic changes. So if you enjoyed the video, please consider liking and subscribing. It would help now more than ever. Cubix Robots for Everyone is a show I watched as a kid. It was an early 3D show from South Korea, created by Cinepix, that was brought over to the States and aired on WB Kids by 4Kids Entertainment. And to be honest, I don't really remember watching the show that much. I remember watching some of it for sure, but I think I had a VHS with the first episode or something. Cubix Robots for Everyone is about a boy named Connor who moves to Bubbletown, which is the location of Robix Corp, the company that makes all kinds of robots to help with everyday tasks like construction or to just hang out and be your friend. All of the robots have X somewhere in their name. It's kind of like the Mon from Digimon, and this show does remind me of Digimon and Pokemon in a way. It's definitely a show where they wanted you to memorize all the names of these robots. In the first episode, Connor finds Cubix, an abandoned robot that seems unfixable. Connor does his best, but it's no dice, until he ends up in danger and Cubix finally awakens to save him. There is something about the design of Cubix that sparks joy. I love his friendly appearance and colors, and his little digital eyes he has for emoting, and I feel like he has the same aura that Baymax has from Big Hero 6. The villain of the show is Dr. K, not the mental health YouTuber, but this freaky little gremlin, who uses a variety of robots, including a massive robot named Colossal, to try and steal an energy source called Solex, which is what makes the various robots sentient. Cubix is the titular transformer that is not a transformer. He's made up of cubes and can break apart and reconfigure as different vehicles. There are even transformation sequences like in Transformers. Cubix turns into a variety of different vehicles, but most of them are flying vehicles because he doesn't have any wheels. In one of the episodes he turns into a drill, which is kinda cool. I do feel like it's a good idea, but I also feel like Cubix is more limited than one would think. There were a couple more transforming robots in the show, like Maximix, who can transform into a 3-wheeled motorcycle, and Cheetah, a cat-like robot that can transform into a car. I watched episode 1 of the show, and I gotta say it held up better than I was expecting. I was expecting But Ugly Martians level of animation and storytelling, but I think they did a really good job, and I was especially into Connor trying to fix Cubix. There's just something special about media where an old clunker robot gets fixed, and then is revealed to be a really strong robot with a heart of gold. Cubix, of course, had a toy line, which was created by Trend Masters, who made the Godzilla toys back in the day. There were smaller basic figures of the humans and robots. The animation on the humans is probably the worst thing about the show. The technology just wasn't there. But to be honest, the art style helped them out more than most early CGI shows. Again, looking at you, But Ugly Martians. Regardless, the human toys look weird, but accurate, standing about 4 to 5 inches tall. There were also several robots released at the scale, including Cubix and Colossal. The real stars of the toy line were the programmable robots, though. These are larger toys with gimmicks and sounds, which are activated by swiping cards from the Cubix card game, which is a cool idea. I actually didn't know there even was a Cubix card game before researching. I have no idea how to play it, but the cards are weird because they're super thin, and each one has a unique barcode on the back, which should be an obvious red flag to anyone who plays card games, because the backs of the cards could be memorized. But let's be honest, the number of people who actually played this game has to be in the single digits. I do like that every toy from the line comes with at least one card. That's good brand synergy, even if no one cared at the time. While the smaller Cubix could not transform, programmable Cubix could actually come apart and reform into vehicles just like the show. He seems like a fairly fun and sturdy toy. Like I said, you can swipe the cards on his back and he'll make noises, though getting the cards to actually scan seems a bit tricky.
Card rejected. Card invalid. Reswipe card. Invalid.
The other robots in the line are not nearly as cool, though Maximix can transform into bike mode like in the show. And if you have the Connor and Mong figures, they can ride their respective robots just like in the show. And even the scale is pretty accurate, which is cool. I can't lie though, I had no idea any of these toys existed as a kid, but I did know about the Cubix Burger King toys. I had a few, and that's probably where I got my Cubix VHS tape, because fast food places were just giving away VHS tapes and DVDs back in the day. Burger King had the Big Kids meal, which was essentially a normal meal, but it still came with a toy. The Cubix Burger King toy lineup was not amazing, but the coolest part is that if you collected all of the toys, you could build your own Cubix, because every toy came with a piece of him. I remember wanting to complete him so bad, but there was absolutely no way that was happening. And it clearly didn't happen for other people either. I couldn't even find an eBay picture of this toy, which is called Mega Cubix even though he looks like normal Cubix. If any of my subscribers want to be brave and drop the $100 it would take to buy this set from eBay and build him, I salute you. Overall, Cubix is better than expected looking back, and it's kind of crazy to me that there was never a sequel or follow-up to the show. If you're enjoying this video and want to support me past a like and subscribe, I have YouTube memberships and a Patreon. Both give you the same thing: access to my super chill Discord server where we talk about toys daily, watch tokusatsu weekly, and watch a movie monthly. You also get access to my member exclusive series of videos called Toy Dives, where I look at random toy lines, like Mighty Mugs, which were a childhood classic of mine and are kind of like the OG Funko Pops. Golden Warrior Gold Lightan is an anime from 1981. It's about a boy named Hiro who finds a golden Zippo lighter that transforms into a giant robot called Gold Lightan. Unfortunately, it seems like the show hasn't been brought to the West in any meaningful way. There might be a subbed version of the show out there. If you find it, let me know, because at the moment, the only episode I've seen from the show is literally the last one, as it's available on YouTube because someone uploaded it. Watching the last episode of a 52 episode series is certainly a weird experience. Also, there were no subtitles, but I got the gist of what was happening. There are some bad guys and Gold Lightan has to stop them. Simple enough to understand even without the details. I have to say the animation is incredible. I love this older anime look. To be honest, I can't even explain the difference between old and new anime. I just like the old look better. Maybe some anime heads can psychoanalyze me and figure out why that is. But anyway, even though I watched one episode of the show and it was the last episode and I didn't know what the characters were saying, I actually really enjoyed watching this episode of Golden Warrior Gold Lightan, though I was absolutely not expecting this part where the villain has Gold Lightan on the ropes and does this to him. Making the villain a Nazi is not that crazy to me, especially only a few decades after the war, but I really am just shocked by the visual of the symbol being carved into his chest. Not only is it kind of shockingly violent, but if you saw a screen cap of Gold Lightan with the carving on his chest, you might assume he's some sort of Nazi super robot.
Start digging in your butt, twin.
But the final battle is awesome, and I love how violently Gold Lightan stabs his hand through the villain. As I understand it, the rest of the show is more of a monster of the week dealio, where Gold Lightan has to take out enemy robots. But let's talk about the toys. The Gold Lightan toys are a type of toy called Chogokin, which means super alloy in Japanese. They're called such because of their heavy use of die-cast metal, which is what Hot Wheels cars are made out of if you're unfamiliar. Die-cast metal robot toys were super popular for most of the 70s and 80s, though plastic soon took over as the main material used for toys. And diecast is usually only used for higher end toys now. The original Gold Lightan toy turns into a shape resembling a Zippo lighter. I guess I haven't talked about that much. It is kind of weird that he turns into a lighter, but I don't think Hiro was using him to smoke or anything. I think it's because lighters create, well, light, and his name is Gold Lightan. The transformation is simple, but it does seem very satisfying. I've talked about it many times in this video series, but there really is something appealing about robots that just turn into shapes. Gold Gold Lightan is a fairly chunky boy, but he wears it well, and he even has a couple action features. His skirt can flip up to reveal 2 missiles, and his fists are spring-loaded so you can launch them with the push of a button. I also just really like the look of his head. I like that he has a little hat. But Gold Lightan wasn't the only robot in the show. He has a whole host of Golden Warrior buddies, like Scope Lightan, who turns into a scope for identifying enemies. His robot mode is adorably goofy with super thin limbs, and I love his big yellow eyes. We also have Time Lightan, who turns into whatever this thing is. It looks important though. There are numbers around his head, and I'm assuming you can wind his head and have him act as a timer, though that's just me guessing. It has been pretty difficult to find info on these guys, and most of these pics are just from eBay listings. Dingy Lightan is ugly as hell. His face looks so smug. He looks like he's judging me for not owning an air fryer. He has a compass in his body, which is cool. I feel like these little utilities help Japanese kids convince their parents to get the toys for them. Speaking of, here's Nick Cage buying his son a Gold Lightan figure. It's a totally random clip, but I just thought it was funny. Also, did you know his son's name is Kal-El? That is wild. Bro really earned his unnecessary cameo in The Flash. Mechanic Lightan is pretty cool. His chest has a bunch of cute little tools, and you can insert them into his hands. I really like that the toolbox in his chest can tip forward to make them easier to access. That's just good toy making. I don't know what he turns into, but it reminds me of a jukebox. Coin Lightan is another goofball. He turns into a roll of coins, which is kind of cool. I wonder if he has infinite money glitch powers. Print Lightan is a simple chunkster, and he turns into a print stamper. He even comes with an ink cartridge, which might be the funniest toy accessory of all time. This guy turns into a little flashlight, and his name is Lightan. Very creative. I do like that his eyes glow and they're bright green. Cutter Lightan is friend-shaped, and he turns into a pencil sharpener, and you actually sharpen the pencil with his head. I'm wondering if he has a compartment you can take out to get rid of the pencil shavings. Meter Lightan is one of the more boring ones. He measures something with this weird compass-looking thing on his head. I need a Lightan that will warn me about carbon monoxide poisoning, please. And finally, there was IC Lightan. IC stands for Internet Computer, and he's definitely the most different of the Lightans, being black instead of gold. Also, since he transforms into a computer component, he doesn't really seem to have an action feature, making him a bit boring. While Golden Warrior Gold Lightan seemed fairly popular in its time, to my knowledge there's never been a continuation of the story. And honestly, that's kind of nice. Every time a classic movie gets a sequel in modern day, I die a little inside. Not to say a sequel or remake would automatically be bad, but it is nice that some things just stand on their own. Gold Lightan did appear in the video game Tatsunoko vs. Capcom Ultimate All-Stars for the Wii, which is a fighting game. So you could play as Gold Lightan and fight Frank West from Dead Rising, and that's pretty cool. Gold Lightan also got a modern day remake in the Soul of Chogokin line, which is a toy line celebrating die-cast robot toys from the 70s and 80s. This version is awesome, and a great remake of the original toy, though I don't like that you have to take pieces of his arms and legs off to complete the transformation. It's such a simple design that I really do find any degree of parts forming unacceptable, especially considering the original doesn't have it. But besides that, it's a fantastic looking toy, and I love that he comes with a robot heart he can hold. Overall, Golden Warrior Gold Lightan is a show that never had any presence here in the West, but I'm glad I took the time to learn about this interesting line of Transformers that are not Transformers. Growing up, I always saw Kinects at the toy stores, and sometimes I would see the big moving Ferris wheel displays, but I never so much as touched a Kinects toy. So color me surprised to find out there was a Kinects toy line that features transformations. Kinda. These are ReKonstructors, and they remind me a lot of Bionicle, especially the packaging they come in with the plastic canisters. I have to admit, I literally only know ReKonstructors exist because of my friend Delta Trion, a YouTuber who covers Transformers comic books. He even made a video essay about these toys 3 years ago on a different channel, and to this day it's like one of 5 videos on the site about the toy line. So I decided to bring in the man himself to explain ReKonstructors lore.
Wow. Thanks so much, Jake, for having me on the channel in this video. I'm so excited to talk about ReKonstructors, this amazing franchise that everybody knows. It's dead? It's okay. All right. Well, let's just go on with the story. ReKonstructors takes place on Z-Core when these pilots land and find mysterious power cores that allow them to change into different creations, like a motorcycle or a tank, so on and so forth. But there's also creatures on site called the Zikorians who are fighting against them. And you see, that's, well, for the most part, that's actually all the story there is. Each figure that you bought came with a little comic book, and you can still find some of them online, and there actually was kind of a small animated cartoon, again, really more just animated slides to a comic that showed off the story, for, if you could even call it that. It's out there somewhere, but for the most part, it's just the good guys are trying to kill the bad guys because they want their power cores, and the bad guys, they're just bad. So, yeah, that's pretty much the gist of this great franchise that I love so much. The reason I love it so much is because I had these toys as a kid before I ever had Transformers. Yeah, and these guys they're pretty haunting. I'm pretty sure I still have one stored away in a closet somewhere, and that's probably for the best, because if I were to pick it back up and look at it, I really don't want that horrifying human face that's been melded into this metal machine to be staring at me. These have a certain charm to them, but I think it's okay that they're not really around anymore.
Thanks, Delty Triad. I'll take it from here to talk about the toys themselves. But everyone watching should check out Delta if you enjoy Transformers lore. Now, while transforming Bionicles sound cool and kind of do exist, we'll cover that in the future, these ReKonstructors take their name quite seriously. Because to transform them, you have to take them apart and reconstruct them. If you've seen my Creo video, you'll know one of my big beefs with that toy line was having to take apart and rebuild the Transformers into their alt modes, which I absolutely hate as a play pattern, and is just fully not what Transformers is to me. Not hating on you if you like them, but for me personally, that is a miserable play pattern, and ReKonstructors is exactly the same, though using Connect pieces, which is a bit different. Looking at these guys is funny because they remind me of when I was young and fake Bionicle leaks would come out. There were several times where I liked the leaks more than the actual toys, but yeah, ReKonstructors are Bionicle at home. We had a few waves. The first featured 2 factions, the Elite Pilots and the Zikorians. The first wave featured 8 figures, 3 small sets and 1 large set for each faction. The Zikorians are more like beasts, pretty much the Rahi from Bionicle. They unfortunately suffer what I call 2007 Scorponok syndrome, where a robot has a beast mode, and the robot mode just ends up looking like a beast standing on its hind legs, which obviously looks bad and sometimes funny. Every ReKonstructor also had a third mode. It's called Escape mode, and it's a bunch of nonsense usually. The 3 smaller Zikorians are Relic, Razor, and Tempest. Razor is a scorpion. He's pretty boring looking if I'm being honest. Ironically, his robot mode is more unique, but still goofy. I like Relic a lot more. He's got some gecko vibes, which is interesting, and I like the green and purple. His robot mode is totally just a man gecko though, which is really funny. Also, these things look so brittle. I can't say for sure that they are, but look at those stick legs. Tempest is a fairly okay looking dragonfly, and you can combine all 3 small sets into one big creature, and it's easily the nicest looking model so far. The big set for the Zikorians is Ravage, a giant bug that kind of looks like an ant. It's also remote control operated, which is kind of cool. His robot mode is not very convincing though, but that shouldn't be a shock to us at this point. On the Elite Pilot side, we have Rider, Shadow, and Skyhawk. Rider is a bike, which looks fine. At first glance, I might assume it's Lego Technic. His robot mode is, Jesus Christ, is that a man's face? Yeah, all the good guys of the line's heads have actual faces on them, and let me tell you, it is off-putting. Rider is so squat and dorky looking, and the man face complete with goatee just feels crazy. His third mode is even weirder. It feels like I'm witnessing body horror. Skyhawk turns into an okay jet, and he looks like a dork in robot mode. His third mode is just the plane with his head sticking out. And finally, Shadow is a chubby little helicopter, which looks kinda cute, but dear lord, his robot mode looks painful. This dude came pre-installed with arthritis. These 3 sets can also combine, and man does it look not good. Just a mess of an action figure. For the Elite Pilot's large figure, we had Diesel, who has his human face just sticking out of the front of the vehicle. Truly a diabolical look for a children's toy. Besides the creepazoid face, the vehicle is actually pretty cool. I like the colors, and he can turn into a base that the other 3 Elite Pilots can park on, which is a really cool feature. Again, his robot mode looks terrible. He kind of reminds me of Built to Rule Megatron in a weird way. This wasn't the end of ReKonstructors though. There was a second wave that featured new smaller sets called Extractors. The figures were called Jammer, Vector, and Bulldog, and they're very similar to the Elite Pilots, just a bit simpler and honestly a bit better in my opinion, though I still hate how these things look, especially Bulldog, who has a dumb horseshoe mustache, because why not, I guess? I do like the little construction vehicle he turns into though. Along with the Extractors, there was a second wave of normal sets, again with 8 figures, 6 normal sized and 2 big ones. The factions for the second wave were a bit different, with the villains being the Zecorian fossils, which I'm assuming are ancient Zecorian beasts. They low-key did fossilizers before fossilizers. And on the opposite side we had the Strike Force, who were basically just more guys that turned into planes. Unfortunately, there's little to no information or even pictures of these weirdos. I do believe they came out in some capacity because the large set, Inferno Strike, is on eBay. To be honest, this entire line seems to have been completely forgotten, and it must have sold extremely poorly. I'm talking godlike levels of bad sales, because through all of my videos, I don't think I've ever encountered such an underdocumented toy line. And honestly, I can see why. These toys are ugly, the play pattern sucks, and if I got these instead of Bionicles for my birthday, I probably would have been pissed. Thanks to Delta Trion for showing me these creatures and making me research these freaks. I hate you, Delta Trion. Masters of the Universe is one of my all-time favorite toy lines, mostly because of how balls to the wall crazy it is. For those unaware, Masters of the Universe is the franchise He-Man comes from. It was a toy line that was created by Mattel and started in 1982. Just based off its most popular characters, He-Man and Skeletor, you might not realize how bizarre the world of Masters really is. While the main dress setting is fantasy and barbarians, there is a ton of sci-fi influence on the series, and the world of Eternia is magical and technological in a really interesting way. And while it can seem like a mishmash of conflicting concepts, it all works together surprisingly well. I absolutely love the weird-ass realm of Eternia and all the strange lore, and I hope the new movie does it justice. The original toy line ran from 1982 to 1987, which is very impressive for any toy line, and most modern toy lines tend to last 3 years at the most. Masters of the Universe lasted long enough to see new toy trends hit the market and adapt them into their own toy line, which is where Transformers comes in. Released in 1984, the Transformers took the toy market by storm, and it became clear that transforming toys were hot and profitable. So in 1985, Mattel introduced their own transforming toys to the Masters line, with 2 characters named Rock-On and Stone-Dar, who were actually aliens from outer space that crash landed on Eternia. These guys look a fair bit different from normal Masters toys to facilitate their transformation, which is very simple. All you have to do is bend them forward and they could transform into, well, rocks. Now you might have heard of the Rock Lords, but those are different guys for a different video. Stone-Dar and Rock-On are very similar to those toys because they also turn into rocks, or more specifically meteors. Stone-Dar specifically looks a lot more like a meteor, and I really like the texture and blue airbrushing on his back, while Rock-On is more of a normal looking rock, though he's still rocking a lot of blue. Obviously these aren't the most amazing looking action figures, but it's funny Mattel tried to make toys like this at all, and these 2 aren't the only transforming toys in the Masters of the Universe toy line. There was a whole subline of transforming toys called Meteorbs, which were eggs that could open up and transform into animals. Just like the main toy line, there were good and evil factions of Meteorbs. The heroic Meteorbs included Tuskor, who turned into a woolly mammoth, Astro Lion, who became a lion, Comet Cat, who is a panther, and Tiger, who became a tiger. I love the name Tiger. Always good to have an onomatopoeia in your name. And Cometroid, who actually turns into a robot, which is kind of weird considering every other Meteorb turns into an animal, but for Masters it is really not that strange. As for the evil Meteorbs, there was Orbear, the grizzly bear, Rhinorb, a rhino Meteorb, Dinosaurb, a Brachiosaurus, as well as Crocobite, who turns into a crocodile. He's my personal favorite because the texture of the toy looks really nice. And finally, Gorilla. Get it? Like Gore? Whatever. Gorilla is the leader of the evil Meteorbs, and he has the same transformation as Cometroid. They have a weird transformation where their arms come out on little metal bars. Obviously, these Meteorbs are a bit weird. Why are they all animals? And why are they called orbs if they're all egg-shaped? concept? Well, as it turns out, Mattel took a page out of Hasbro's playbook and bought these toy designs from Japanese company Bandai. These toys are from Bandai's line called Tamagoras. Tamago in Japanese means egg, which explains their shape, and they're even presented as eggs in the toy commercial. Tamagoras are really cute. There were many versions outside of what was brought over to Meteorbs, like Dracula, Ultraman, and Skeleton Tamagoras. Bandai even brought the toy line back a few years ago. They were much bigger and more detailed. I love the T-Rex and the bird is funny looking. I'm kinda surprised they never tried to turn Tamagoras into anything. I feel like eggs that turn into robots could have been a good basis for an anime. Just look at Bakugan. Tamagoras are also heavily bootlegged, probably because of their simple nature, so it's relatively easy to get some lower quality ones for cheap. Moving back to Masters of the Universe, in recent years, Mattel has gone back and remade the classic He-Man toys with new articulation. This line is called Masters of the Universe Origins, and they did remake Rock-On, fitting him with new articulation while he retains his ability to transform. They have not made a Stondar yet to my knowledge. Sadly, the Meteorbs have been cast to the wayside by Mattel, most likely because the molds were not made by them, and remaking them might be tricky, legally speaking, or they just don't think Meteorbs are popular enough to justify remaking them. But regardless, the Meteorbs are a strange chapter in Masters history, but also very adorable and cool. If you've been following this video series, you've also been following my journey of becoming a tokusatsu fan. Tokusatsu is a specific genre of Japanese film and television that focuses on practical and special effects, with the first tokusatsu film being the original Godzilla, though I am personally more interested in the realm of superhero tokusatsu, mainly Kamen Rider and Super Sentai. I've also started watching Ultraman, which is the third biggest superhero tokusatsu show after the previous two I mentioned. Ultraman is actually older than both Kamen Rider and Super Sentai, starting in 1966. Ultraman is a giant hero who fights kaiju and protects humanity. Though all Ultraman series are only loosely connected, the general gist is that Ultraman is an alien that develops a love for humanity. He fights kaiju to protect Earth, and there is usually a lot of sci-fi elements in the series. For my credentials, I've watched all of Ultraman Arc, which is the most recent completed series, and I've also watched the movies Shin Ultraman and Ultraman Rising. I actually watched Ultraman Rising before I even knew the word tokusatsu, and looking back, while I like the movie, it being animation kinda takes away from my favorite part of Ultraman, which is the guys in suits beating each other up next to miniature cities. I know this type of show isn't for everyone, and you have to have a high tolerance for cheesiness, but man, I have fallen in love with this style of show, and I'm so happy to be watching the newest entry, Ultraman Omega, as it's coming out. And by the way, you can watch Ultraman Omega super easily, because they upload every new episode to YouTube for free, which is awesome because for a lot of Japanese shows, it is difficult for fans to watch them and support the show itself. So I think Tsuburaya, the company that owns Ultraman, is really forward-thinking and smart in this regard. Ultraman Omega is 10 episodes in at the time of recording, and I'm having a great time watching it weekly with my Discord. The show is about Omega, who is an Ultraman that falls to Earth from space after being injured. When he lands on Earth, he ends up in a human form and has severe amnesia, and at the same time, kaiju start emerging for the first time in human history. Omega makes a friend named Kosei after wandering to his house and stealing his fried noodles. Omega doesn't understand anything about Earth or human customs, so it's a complete fish out of water story and can be really funny. Omega's actor is really good too. He's mastered the art of the blank stare, and you can literally see the gears turning in his brain whenever someone asks him a question. Omega can transform into Ultraman with the power of his Omega Slugger, a weapon he hides in his head. When he inserts his Omega Meteo into it, he changes into Ultraman Omega, who looks really cool. Most Ultramen don't have a red face, and he kinda reminds me of a luchador. I also really like his glowing blue eyes. I low-key want to touch them and feel the texture. The toy for the Omega Slugger is cool. It's a really simple toy and works just like the show, and of course it makes noises and jingles like any good Japanese role-playing toy. I will say Ultraman's toys are not as exciting as Kamen Rider or Super Sentai's, but it's still fun. And this isn't the transforming toy I really wanted to talk about with this series. Later on in the show, Kosei and Omega find meteors that have landed on Earth, and these meteors eventually crack open to reveal objects that can transform into Meteo Kaiju, which are friendly kaiju that help Ultraman, and they are controlled by Kosei via a psychic link. The first Meteo Kaiju they find is ReKonstructors, a blue Godzilla-looking kaiju. I absolutely love the look of this monster. The blue and red is so striking, and instead of being really strong, ReKonstructors has the power of telekinesis. The kaiju can also transform into a sword and combine with Ultraman Omega to give him a new form, which looks badass and is probably my favorite Omega look. The toy toy for him looks just like the one from the show, which is on purpose, as these shows are essentially toy commercials, but they have really good stories to go with the toys, and as a fan of toys myself, it's kind of fun to see a direct translation from show to toy. The transformation between what I call egg mode and kaiju mode is pretty simple. Rekiness doesn't move much and he looks a bit silly, but I love this goober, and he also transforms into a sword, but due to the small size of the toy, it's more like a dagger. The second Meteo kaiju introduced is Trigon, a robotic lion with super speed. I wasn't sold on his design until I saw him in the show, and I think I actually like him as much as Rekiness. I especially love that he's a robot, but he has real hair. There's something hella Digimon coded about that. Just like Rekiness, Trigon can transform into a weapon, and combine with Ultraman Omega, giving him a claw weapon, and Trigon's super speed powers. The toy for Trigon is a bit worse than Rekiness in my opinion. I just feel like this toy doesn't do the design justice, though I like his metallic silver mane. Like I said, he transforms into a claw weapon, and the handle is so small it's funny. But again, we have to remember that these toys are made for 8-year-olds. There is another Meteo kaiju confirmed for the show, though we haven't seen a toy yet. Like I said, Ultraman Omega is free on YouTube, and if you like practical action, silly humor, and occasional badass moments, I highly recommend the show. Hey, thanks for watching. Just a reminder that I have merch now. I've been really bad at advertising it, but you can get a dumbjake shirt, hoodie, hat, etc. now. Also, if you enjoyed the video and want to support me past a like and subscribe, I have YouTube memberships and a Patreon. Both give you the same thing. Access to my super chill Discord server, where we talk about toys daily, watch Tokusatsu weekly, and watch a movie monthly. And you also get access to my member exclusive series of videos called Toy Dives, where I look at random toy lines. Alright y'all, I'll see you in the next one. Ciao.